Greetings, everyone. I'm New Hampshire State Representative Jeanine, and you're watching the Zoom edition of Chattin' with Jeanine. Continuing my limited series on history, I've drafted a historian in California, Rash. If you've been watching these special Zoom editions, you'll also know that Lee is my brother and a United States Marine. Hoorah!
Hoorah!
Yes, this week we'll be learning about Bougainville, not to be confused with a bougainvillea. That's a climbing plant that has pretty pink flowers. I had one in my garden when I lived in California. If I'm correct, Lee is going to take us to a part of Oceania in the Pacific Ocean near Papua New Guinea. Let's find out. So welcome back, Lee, and Semper Fi.
Semper Fi, thank you very much. Good to be here.
Is it Bougainville?
It's actually French. I'm not sure how the French pronounce it, but we call it Bougainville. And we'll see a few other islands in the area which also have French names.
I'm thinking of Margaritaville, Bougainville. I wonder if they're near each other.
Yeah, I've been there too.
You've been there?
That was Gunnery Sergeant Jimmy Buffett, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. One thing I didn't tell you about before when we were talking about Guadalcanal, the Marines called Guadalcanal the Operation Shoestring because a lot of the equipment they had was a hodgepodge, and most of them were armed with this guy right here, the M1903 Springfield rifle. And after you guys cornered me on Guadalcanal Diary, I went back and watched the movie again.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, actually, a lot of the dialogue for the movie came out of that book by Richard Tregaskis. And I don't know if Hollywood did this on purpose, but they did show an awful lot of the Marines armed with M1903 Springfield rifles, which was pretty accurate. This is a bolt action rifle. You could see the bolt right here, which means every time you fire it, you have to pull the bolt back and then shove it forward to put another bullet in the chamber.
No, I just wanted a helmet for a pillow. Is that the one?
No, helmet for a pillow.
That was another book.
A little bit about Guadalcanal, but more about Bougainville, actually, where we're going today.
Okay.
Robert Leckie, the author of that book.
That's it.
Yeah, Leckie was part of this invasion in Bougainville. So, but I wanted to tell you about the Springfield. It's a bolt-action rifle, and very much like the rifles that are being used in World War II by other countries. Now, the U.S. Army switched from the Springfield 03 to the very popular M1 rifle, which is right here. Let me move your picture out of the way. This is the M1, and that's what we often associate with World War II, the M1 rifle. It has 8 shots. That means you put 8 bullets in here. Here's the clip right here. And this is gas operated rather than bolt action. And George Patton said this was the greatest invention ever. And he attributed this to the reason why the Americans won the war. I'm not sure I would go that far, but here's how the M1 actually works.
I love this. New Hampshire is so pro 2A.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was at the range yesterday, actually.
M1 is actually not a favorite of mine. When you're putting the bullets in, you have to be very careful because that bolt, spring-loaded, tends to fly back, and a lot of guys end up with what we call M1 thumb.
Ooh.
So very careful. But what happens is every time a bullet is fired, behind it are all the gases from the explosion. And normally, like in a bolt-action rifle, the gases simply go out of the rifle, down the barrel, just like the bullet does. But in a gas-operated rifle, there's a port up here. And the gases cannot go forward because it's trapped by the bullet, so the gases will go through the port, and that pushes the spring back, so you don't have to pull a bolt. It happens automatically. All right, so that little tidbit of information there. Here are the standard rifles in World War II, and you can see, other than the M1 at the top, all the other countries have bolt action. You have to pull them back.
A picture of I'm going to a machine gun shoot next month, and I'm hoping they'll have some of these there.
Well, machine guns are gas operated, so you could dazzle them with that information. All right, so I'll take us back to where we were at the end of last week. The Americans had raided Mackinac Island, which is up here, and we had to take Guadalcanal to protect the shipping lanes to Australia and New Zealand. So where do we go from here? And remember that the Pacific is a side action. The official Allied policy is Germany first. So all of the action and all of the major funding is going to go to the European theater, not to the Pacific. But you got to fight the Japanese somehow. So what strategy are you going to take? Well, we have two different strategies that are proposed. One by the commander of the naval forces, Admiral Nimitz. Nimitz is based up here in Hawaii. And Nimitz says we need to go through the Central Pacific and eventually get to Formosa, which today is called Taiwan. Yeah. And from there to Japan. But we also have another guy who's used to getting his own way, Douglas MacArthur, commander of the Army forces. And MacArthur says, no, the way we do this is we go west through the Solomons, through New Guinea, and then up back to the Philippines. Well, the Philippines is very important to him. He was pulled out of there in March of 1942. And when he gets to Australia, he gets on the radio. He says, I came through and I shall return.
Yes.
So that is his big, his famous quote and his war cry, I shall return. So he wants very much to go back this way. The decision is placed at the feet of President Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt, the quintessential compromiser, well, very good idea. We'll do both. And so that is the decision. Here is going to be part of the topic of today. The Japanese headquarters is in Rabaul, and it is on the northern tip of this island here, which is called New Britain. And MacArthur says we got to take the island of Bougainville, which is at the northwest tip of the Solomon Islands. He says we've got to have that to neutralize Rabaul. Rabaul is a huge fortress for the Japanese, and they are wreaking havoc with American forces all over in this area because they've got such a large fortress there. So MacArthur really wants to take it, but at least neutralize it. Here we have a meeting with MacArthur, President Roosevelt, and here is Admiral Nimitz. This is actually in July of 1944, so much later than the decision to, okay, guys, we'll go for both of you. All right.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute? You know my good friend from high school, Mary. She had coffee with us the last time I was out visiting.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was born in Formosa.
She's born in Formosa.
Well, Taiwan, but we still call it Formosa.
Yeah.
You can go back to your regularly scheduled program now.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been to Taipei a few times. But, okay. There we go. Here are the Solomon Islands down here. Here is where Rabaul is. Huge Japanese fortress there. There is just absolutely no way for the American forces to take Rabaul. Too big, too fortified. Here's where Guadalcanal is, way down here. And Rabaul, the air forces, the Japanese air forces there, continue to harass Guadalcanal and American and Allied shipping all over in this area. Bougainville, where the Allies are going to land next in the Solomons, is 210 miles from Rabaul. So that's 210 miles there. All the way down to Guadalcanal is over 600 miles. So you can kind of get an idea why MacArthur wants to get closer. The responsibility for this landing is given to this gentleman right here. I'll move you again. This is William F. Halsey. A lot of Americans remember him as Bull Halsey. That's what the press called him. And in actuality, Admiral Halsey hated that name. He didn't want anybody calling him Bull Halsey, and nobody called him that before the war, but that's what the press began to call him. So he's got the responsibility, and he sets D-Day for November the 1st, 1943. Do you know what the D in D-Day stands for, by the way?
I always thought it was Doomsday.
That's a good way to remember it. Actually doesn't stand for anything. It's just a placeholder.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's like the S in Patton. I might be thinking of the wrong. Somebody has a middle.
Grant.
Grant.
Ulysses S. Grant.
Yeah, the S doesn't stand for anything.
Yeah, he did not have a middle name. So when he went to West Point, they gave him an initial, and he complained about that. He says, "I don't have a middle name." They said, "Well, you do now." And because his name was now U.S. Grant, all of his classmates called him Uncle Sam. And so a lot of times he's referred to as Sam Grant.
Uncle Sam was born in Troy, New Hampshire. I drove through it. No, not New Hampshire, New York, Troy, New York. Right. Drove through it on the way to Niagara Falls a few years ago.
Okay.
Getting back to our program.
We've got Halsey here, and Halsey is going to designate this area right here as where the forces are going to land. And the American forces will be about 14,000, a little over 14,000 men. Men from the 3rd Marine Division, many of them veterans from Guadalcanal, like Robert Leckie, and the 37th U.S. Army Infantry Division, also Guadalcanal veterans. The overall command of this operation for the forces on the ground will be General Alexander Archer Vandegrift, the same gentleman who commanded the American forces in Guadalcanal. He had been the commander of the 1st Marine Division. Well, now he's commanding this entire operation. And notice now he's got 3 stars instead of 2. He's a lieutenant general rather than a major general. He's been promoted. General Vandegrift is going to go on after this campaign and become the commandant of the Marine Corps, in which case he's going to get 4 stars. That's as high as the Marines go, 4 stars. Okay, here is another map. You may have noticed by now I really like maps.
Yes.
It shows you where things are. Okay.
I get that from your mother. She really liked maps and geography.
Who was that?
Your mother.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The General Vandegrift will indicate that we need some diversionary landings. So he and Halsey will have some diversionary activity going on. Marines are going to land at Troussel Island, which is right here, another French named island, and the Treasury Islands down here. Okay. And these will be diversions. The landing forces won't be there for maybe a week at the most, but it gives the Japanese an idea that, oh, they're hitting here, they're hitting there. And this diversion actually worked. And some of the Japanese troops from Bougainville Island, which is right here, were actually sent to these other islands. Here's Guadalcanal down here. The actual landing site right here, Cape Torokina. All right. And from Guadalcanal up to Cape Torokina is 400 miles. So quite a distance. Here is the American naval officer that will be in charge of the landing. So this guy's commanding the ships. This is Rear Admiral Theodore Wilkinson, and he had been on several of the other landings since Guadalcanal. And this guy put into practice what he learned from the other landings. One of the things that he learned was you need to get the vessels in and get them unloaded quickly. Get the transports the heck out of the way. We lost several of them at Guadalcanal, and move them out ASAP. ASAP is kind of a Marine Corps term that means as soon as possible.
I knew that. We use that today.
Another meaning for that is hurry up, damn it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, in order to hurry up, damn it, we're okay with that on Merrimack TV? Okay.
Yes.
Very good. He loaded his transports only half full, and the cargo ships only 1/4 full. So you could get that stuff off quickly. And he also stipulated that the troops that have landed, 30% of them are going to assist with the unloading. So we get this stuff off and get those vessels the heck out of the way fast. So that worked. We are learning a little bit at a time. So remember, this is November the 1st, 1943. How long has the United States been at war? By November 1st, 1943.
A couple of years. Well,
Yeah,
since
almost 2
Pearl Harbor.
years. So this is a long time. I mean, how long have we been in quarantine with the COVID virus?
Oh, 6 years now.
Oh yeah, it seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But can you imagine 2 years? It's a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, here is a photograph of what the operation would be like. They throw these cargo nets over the side of the ship, and then the guys have to climb down.
And how old are you guys?
Very similar to Guadalcanal. These guys are mostly under 20 years old. Some of them are Guadalcanal veterans, like I said before. One thing I want to point out too, this guy's doing it the right way. There's a right way and a wrong way of going over a cargo net. And a lot of times when you see this on movies from Hollywood, they're doing it the wrong way because your natural tendency is to hold the bottom rungs of the ropes like this. Mm-hmm. But that's the wrong way to do it because there's another guy on top of you that's coming down. He might step on your hand. So the actual way to do it is to hold to the sides.
Interesting.
And you have your helmet on also. You do not put your chin strap on because if you were to fall off down in the water, guess what? You can't get your helmet off. So no chin straps. So in the real thing, these guys are coming down with their helmets not strapped on and the hands to the side. Okay.
Not Kilroy. Is it Kilroy?
Oh, Kilroy. Yeah. You see that a lot, especially in Europe.
No, I'll never do that. Okay.
These transports, also by now, the Marines do have Higgins boats now, which holds up to 36 men. So you could put a whole platoon in one of these Higgins boats. And we lost 6 of them in this landing to 75 millimeter Japanese howitzers and cannons. How big is a 75 millimeter gun? Well, it fires a 75 millimeter shell, which is 3 inches. That doesn't seem very big, but
Marine Corps him.
sorry,
That's all right. I was running to that yesterday.
I forgot to silence that. Okay, here is a picture of some British soldiers handling 75 millimeter shells.
Those are some big.
So these are actually quite large.
Yes. I was shooting little 22s yesterday. Nothing that big.
Okay. This battle for this island is going to end up being a kind of a grudge match between 2 familiar foes. I've already mentioned General Vandegrift, and then this guy right here, who had also commanded the Japanese trying to retake Guadalcanal. This is General Harukichi Hyakutake. So here he is right here. And his forces, he's got about 50,000 men at his disposal. Some of them have been diverted to those other islands, luckily for the American landing force. But on the island of Bougainville, he's got the Imperial 6th Division from the Imperial Army and the Kure 7th Special Naval Landing Force. So a lot of American correspondents would refer to them as Japanese Marines. They didn't really have a Marine Corps, but they did have these units. Okay. As the Americans are coming in to land at Bougainville, Hyakutake sends over a very large air raid, 120 planes from Rabaul. So you can see that Rabaul is a very important fortress for them. But even at that, the Americans do manage to get 14,000 troops ashore by nightfall and 6,200 tons of supplies. So Admiral Wilkins's plan is working. Here is what the troops have to deal with.
Ooh, oh my gosh, look at that mud.
It rained every single day for about 4 hours. Now, if you see the Pacific miniseries from HBO, you get a flavor for that as they're focusing on Robert Leckie. You see the rain going all the time. So very, very true. And this is it. And I can tell you from experience that you got a job to do. It does not matter what the weather is. You're out there. You're out there all the time. And you're wearing the same clothes.
They don't dry.
During the whole campaign, right?
They must have smelled bad too.
Oh, that's the least of your worries. But you have no change of clothes, no nothing. And there's awful lot of foot problems that occur from constantly having your feet wet all the time.
And they look so thin too, these poor guys.
Yeah. In addition to all of this rain, Bougainville is a very, very dense jungle, even worse than Guadalcanal. At least in Guadalcanal, they had commercially planted palm trees, and there were some grassy areas. But in Bougainville, you have very little of that, mostly jungle all over the place.
Mud world.
Pretty much a mud world. And what the guys would have to dig their fighting holes. Now, the Army calls those foxholes, and I will confess, Marines call them that too. However, not officially. We were told, never call it a foxhole. You're not a dog. So these fighting holes.
The armies are dogs, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So what did you call them? Or can you say
We did call them doggies. Oh, we called them foxholes, but yeah.
Oh.
All right, but not supposed to. Not supposed to.
Okay.
These holes that these guys would dig, if they were able to find an area that wasn't like this to dig their holes in, very quickly they would start filling up with water. You'd have 6 inches to 12 inches of water inside the hole. So these are the conditions that they're going to have to fight in. Okay. By the middle of November, the Marines have managed, and the Army troops have managed to get about halfway through the island. And they are going to run into Japanese that have consolidated on a ridge at about the middle of the island. And the Marines are stopped cold. They have a very hard time getting past this ridge, and they nickname it Hell's a Poppin' Ridge. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this, but this was the title of a very popular movie in 1941.
No, I've never heard of that one, but I'll write it down.
I have seen this movie. I don't really care for it. It's a musical.
Oh.
There are some pretty good dance scenes in it.
And the
very
devil.
Athletic dancers that are in this movie. But in the very beginning of the movie, it starts off with one of these 1930s style dance scene, where the Ginger Rogers type of scene. And then all of a sudden, as they're coming down the stairs go away and it becomes a slide.
How did we're out of time? Is that 27 minutes already?
Well, went fast.
Wow, Justin, you have a picture. Justin is the running the show, the Zoom show, 3 miles up the road. And I sent him a picture, and I think he's just going to pop it up on the screen somewhere.
Okay.
Any minute now, and it'll be a surprise. It's a Marine and a little girl.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah. Are you there, Justin? It's like, caller, are you there? Oh, there he is. Okay. And it's going to pop up. Oh, so you set your timer too. Well, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, but that's not till 5. I just have to read a lot of things.
Okay. I can go through quick.
We can go ahead. Keep going while we're waiting for that picture. Oh, where is it? Oh, can you put it on my screen? Oh, why not? Will it be on the show? Okay. Oh, so it was up. Okay, are we still on the air? Okay. And you know what? My show is called Chattin because I wanted it to be informal. Because sometimes I'll say and right. So I don't. If I was a professional, everything would have to be absolutely perfect, and it's not, because I'm imperfect. Chattin' it is, and I'm going to assume that picture was seen by the viewers. So aren't they cute? It's us. All right, Go ahead, Lee.
Okay, well, they're going to land on November 1st at 0:30. Well, they start an artillery barrage. 0:30 means very early in the morning. Oh. And we did use that term a lot. It does not particularly refer to an actual time. It just means before God gets up. Okay.
0:30. Okay.
0:30. Yeah, artillery barrage, and then followed by airstrikes, and in they come. These are Grumman TBF Avengers. They weren't good for aircraft carriers anymore, so the Marines use them for close air support. All right. By the end of 1943, the Army and the Marines have a very strong foothold on Bougainville Island. So I'm going real fast now. And by the following year, November 1944, the Americans still had not completely taken the island, but they've gone on to other things, and the Australian Army will come in and take over. The Japanese were never completely removed from Bougainville Island, and they wouldn't be removed until after the war is over.
Oh.
Here's what actually happens. Rabaul up here, the Japanese fortress, too strong to waste a lot of resources to take it. So MacArthur and Nimitz decide, we'll just bypass it. We've got other fish to fry, so why spend all our resources on that? MacArthur does indeed go west and then north. He's going to invade the Philippines in October 1944.
Oh, Lee, I just want to interrupt you for a minute. You don't have to rush through this because I can run this as a longer episode. And so we have up to 25 more minutes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So
well, I'm almost done.
Okay.
Okay.
Just let me know.
So here's where Nimitz goes. All right. Gilbert Islands, 44, Marshall Islands, Saipan, June 1944. All the big deal of June 1944 is D-Day in Normandy, June 6th. Well, June 9th was a pretty big deal in the Pacific, the invasion of Saipan. And I'll cover that later on in July. And then in 1945, Iwo Jima, February 1945. And then no fooling, April 1st, 1945, Okinawa.
I'm going to jump. I know this is terribly unprofessional, but again, my show is called Chattin. But my bookshelf, I have a bookshelf to the left of me, and I have a book on Iwo Jima, and I just want to grab it really quick. I'm going to look for it first. Where is it? I was looking at it yesterday. It's called Flags of Our Fathers.
Oh, very good book.
Here it is. It was higher up. I've got my bookshelf is organized, so I've got World War II on one shelf, Civil War on another. Most of my books are downstairs because I have so many of them. But this was one of my favorite books. And
James Bradley.
Right, and Rene Gagnon. I'm not sure which one he is. Rene Gagnon. He was the handsome one. He's from Manchester, New Hampshire.
Oh.
And his mother lived on Dow Street, and Gold's Gym, which is now called Fit Lab, but it was Gold's Gym, is located on Dow Street. And I used to work there. And when I read this book, I'm like, wow, his mother lived on the street of one of the gyms where I worked. So, and I'm sure you've read this.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And this one, the one in the front, his name is Harlan Block. And of course, they didn't, I don't have any nails. I'm embarrassed showing my nails because of the COVID. I have COVID nails. I got sidetracked. So Harlan Block's mother said, no, that's my son. That's Harlan Block. And the military didn't know it was him. They thought he was somebody else. She said, no, I've changed his diapers enough times. I know that's my son. And sure enough, this is Harlan Block. His mother was right. So, and I don't know, this is just a really cool story. Of course, everybody knows about Iwo Jima and the flag raising. It was very famous. But they almost didn't get that picture. They said, oh, there it goes. And the photographer, what is his name, who took the picture? I'm sure you know.
Yeah, Rosenthal.
So
Joe Rosenthal.
Yeah, he just lifted his camera up and got it. But the one that he thought people were asking about when they said, did you get the picture? He said, yep, I got it. He thought it was this one. And remember on last week's episode when you said gung ho? Yeah. They called this the gung ho shot, the gung ho shot. And yeah, I got it. And then they didn't even know, it was all over the world, that famous picture of the flag raising. And at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, one year they had a photographic display, and I got to see the original photo that he took of the flag raising. It was really cool. So people who love history nerds like us, get very excited about things like that.
The the first flag raising, that flag for a long time was at Marine Corps headquarters in 8th and I, Washington, D.C.
Right, there was two flags because the first one, who was the general or who was the commander that said, go put a flag up there? And this one was the replacement flag because it was bigger.
Actually, it was the Assistant Secretary of War, James Forrestal. He was on one of the ships, and he sent the larger flag in and told the Marines that he wanted the first flag. Well, it gets out to a battalion commander. Sorry, I don't remember his name, but Lieutenant Colonel, battalion commander. He got together Mike Strank's platoon. He said, okay, guys, I want you to take this flag and put it up there and replace that other flag. Bring that other flag down to me. And he said, that SOB out there on the ship wants our flag and he ain't gonna get it. So this flag actually got back to Marine Corps headquarters. I'm not sure, somebody could check me on this, but I think that original flag is now at the Marine Corps National Museum in Quantico, Virginia.
I will ask Representative Al Baldessaro. I work with him. He actually gave me this bracelet last week. It has all the armed forces on here, and here's the Marines right there. So shout out to Al. Thank you. I bet he would know that because he's like the go-to person for everything Marine Corps related.
Oh, if you ever have a chance to go to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, it is outstanding.
Oh, I would love to go there. You know, I've always wanted to run the Marine Corps marathon too. I heard that the Marines hand you the water at all the stations and it ends at the monument Iwo Jima. So
yeah,
the world needs to go back to
we've got 3 cousins that have run in that marathon.
Oh, Andrew would be one.
Yep. I believe one of Andrew's brothers and our cousin in New Jersey, Greg.
Oh, Greg, I didn't know Greg ran a marathon.
Greg ran that marathon twice. The first time he didn't make it, so we went back the following year and made it all the way.
I wanted to run it one year with our niece, Beth, because she lives out that way. But we just never got around to it. But I still really, really want to run that marathon. That's on my bucket list. So since we have this COVID world, I've just been doing virtual marathons. I've done 2, and I'm going to try to do another one in a couple of weeks. So I just get up like, what is that? 0 dark 30. Yep. And I start running with a flashlight. And then by 9:30 in the morning, I'm done and people are just getting up. So I just kind of trick myself. So I just go out and just start running. And before I realize what I'm doing, I'm almost done. So that's
I like that virtual running. That's a good idea.
So, well, no, I actually do the running. I don't get a medal. So I do the distance, but I don't get a medal. But that's okay because it's all a personal challenge. And I like to eat cake, so you want to eat cake, you gotta burn it up somehow. So
that's right.
Marathons, it's simple as that. So you had mentioned, getting back to this book, Mark's Strength. He's one of these Marines.
Yeah, Mike Strength. Yeah.
And then in the back, this is Hayes.
He died on your team.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Right. Only 3 of those flag raisers survived the battle.
And then the government made them go around on a bond tour.
Yeah, you see that actually in that Pacific miniseries as well.
Yeah. Did they make this a movie? Because I seem to recall.
They did. Clint Eastwood. What do you call it? Produced that movie. Yeah. There's actually a sequel to that book. It's called Flyboys.
Oh, I'm getting it.
Yeah, same author, James Bradley, Flyboys. And that one talks about the assaults on the neighboring islands, Chichijima, which were all air assaults. And that is where former President George Bush was shot down.
Oh, wow.
And almost became a POW.
Yeah,
But he was rescued by an American submarine.
there was a movie I saw about the war in the Pacific, and there was trouble with sharks. So I meant to ask you that when you were showing us all the maps. I mean, do you know any stories about the shark?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. One of my favorite historians, Thomas Fleming, wrote a book, I think in the early 70s, called Time and Tide. And he doesn't actually use historically accurate names. He has fictitious things about it, but he does tell the story of what actually happened. A ship called the USS Indianapolis. The Indianapolis was a battleship. I'm sorry, a heavy cruiser, and it was the ship that was chosen to deliver the atomic bombs to Tinian Island. And following their dropping off the atomic bombs, they headed for the Philippines. And so conspiracy theory people say that, oh, well, this was their fate because they had delivered atomic bombs. But what happens is halfway to the Philippine Islands, they are submarine attacked and torpedoed, and the ship goes down with all hands. Well, I'm sorry, yeah, I got that wrong too. Most of the hands end up going in the water. And so they feel, well, it's just a number of days. We might be out here for a few days. They end up being in the water for, if I recall correctly, over a week. And this is very, very shark infested waters. And so a lot of them are attacked. There's been several movies made of it called The Indianapolis. One with Richard Thomas from the Waltons.
I met him.
Yeah.
I was on the Waltons that time. You weren't on it, but I was on it with our other brother and Lynn, our sister. And
they did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job in that movie. And the latest one, starring Nicolas Cage, came out a couple of years ago.
Oh.
I didn't like the Nicolas Cage movie as well as the Richard Thomas movie, but both of them give a pretty good description of what happened. And if you want to actually read about it,
I do.
Realizing that there are fictitious names, including the name of the ship, Thomas Fleming's Time and Tide.
Thomas Fleming. Okay.
Yeah.
Time.
I've read a lot of his books.
What was it called again? Time
and Tide.
And Tide. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to finish my story about Richard Thomas because I go off on tangents sometime.
Okay.
The Waltons, the series, The Waltons, that was filmed. The house scenes were filmed in Burbank, California, but all the mountain scenes were up in the mountains above Fraser Park, and we lived up there. And everybody who lived up there got to be extras on The Waltons. So my first time on TV ever, I think I was third grade, was the episode called The Cloudburst. It was season 5 in The Waltons. It was on with our brother Tim and our sister Lynn, and we got paid. It took all day to film that one scene, but we got to meet all the Waltons except for the mom and the dad. But the Grandpa Walton, he was just the same in real life as he was on camera. He was a nice old man. Cammie Kotler, the girl, I remember her telling me she had the largest hands in her class. That's the silly things I remember. And Richard Thomas at the time had just become the father of a new baby. And I asked him, how do you like your new baby? And I remember him eating watermelon because they fed us lunch too, and said, oh, I love my new baby very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that show. I never got to see it when it was being shown first run because I was in college.
Really?
So I never had time for watching TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I have it. I have the whole series, and
I've seen them all by now. But
yeah, no, I watched.
I really like Richard Thomas. Yeah,
I do too. They used to show the reruns on the TVs at the gym. So when I worked at Gold's Gym, I worked at several gyms. I taught exercise for 10 years, And they used to have, sometimes it would come on the TVs, and I saw that episode, and I told everybody in the row, I said, don't blink, just keep watching. Okay, see that little girl right there? That's me. I hadn't grown. They recognized me because I hadn't grown since then.
Well,
kind of a joke. Trying a joke. The same size I was in third grade, I think. That's sad. So I don't know where we're at on time, but I just going back to the show that we just taped in books. We were talking about Patton again. Next time we're on, I'm going to show you one of my favorite books on Patton. I got it at the Patton Museum in the desert near Palm Springs.
Oh yeah, Whitewater.
I don't know. I drove out really early before.
Went from Palm Springs, but
we woke up 0 dark 30 and drove out. Our sister Lynn and my son Blaze and I, and we toured the outside first because it was already 100 degrees. And it was that book. It was one of my favorite books I've ever read. We're down to about 10 minutes. I'll just quickly finish. I'll find it and show it to you because I want you to read it too. He talks about his father, his grandfather. They were all in the military. That, of course, his kids wasn't. And one of the most interesting chapters was when they were burying his father, and in the same grave, they were digging down where his grandfather was, and there was something was stuck or whatever. He had to jump in the grave, and he turned, and the casket was broken, and he saw his embalmed grandfather looking exactly as he had the day he died. And it's like, oh, this kind of spooky, but it was also cool. And so in the last few minutes, do you have anything you want to say to wrap it up, or give us a hint on what you're going to teach us about next week?
Yeah, well, let me go back to my map. Okay. So we've talked about Guadalcanal now. We've talked about Mackinac Islands up here. And now Bougainville right here. Next week, I'm going to introduce you to a personality. The guy's name is Gregory Boyington. And you might remember him more as people referred to him as Pappy Boyington. Another Marine.
Never heard of him.
You've never heard of Pappy Boyington?
No, I will.
Okay. All right. Well, I have an assignment for you.
Okay.
Between now and next week, I want you to learn the Whippin' Poof song.
The what?
The Whippin' Poof song.
Whippin' Poof?
Whippin' Poof.
WHIPPINPOOF?
PUFF, yeah.
Whippin' Poof.
Whippin' Poof. And the song itself is originally an a cappella song that was popularized by singing groups from Yale University. And once you've heard that entire song, that might remind you of who Pappy Boyington is.
Okay, yes, sir. I do know the Marine Corps hymn. That was a requirement growing up in our family. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. I think I knew how to sing that song when I was in kindergarten. Yeah.
I learned how to play it on the piano. And another side note, because I'm known for going off on a tangent, my friends tease me that I beat the keyboard. And I'm like, well, I took piano lessons when I was a kid. So I was always, you have to pound harder to get the sound to come out. So I like beat up my keyboard. Everyone can hear me typing in the office. And that's the reason why. But that was, and I haven't played the piano in years and years, but that was one song I did learn how to play. I taught myself because I knew our dad would like it. So I did.
Very good.
So I think we're ready to wrap it up. So I know you'll be back next week, and then I think you have some commitments coming up. So I'll have some other guests come on, but then we'll have you back as soon as you can.
Yeah. Did you get my email?
Yes.
Suggested perhaps you might want to get to know Professor Alan Guelzo. He teaches at Princeton University now. He used to be at Gettysburg College. And guess Guess what he's an expert at?
Civil War?
Gettysburg, as a matter of fact.
Oh my gosh. And you know this man?
I do not know him personally, but I get recordings from the teaching company based out of Massachusetts. And he is one of the professors that has recorded many of his lectures. And I've got a couple of his books as well. So I feel like I know him.
And you have contact information? Hold on, I'm going to show you what I got in Gettysburg. Just hang on. It's right here.
Okay.
I got this world-renowned artist, Andrew Chernak, who made the Gold Star Mother statue, also made this, Robert E. Lee. He has a ton of them. And I bought these 2 bullets. I bought these 2. These are bullets from Gettysburg. And then some veterans there, one of them gave me this one. So I have 3. And that rotten little parrot that I have tried to eat this.
Look at the bottom of that bullet. Is it concave? Yes.
Yeah.
That's called a mini round.
A mini round, yeah.
Mini round, yeah.
So these are from Gettysburg, and now I have to hide them from the bird.
Oh.
She's trying to eat them.
Okay.
She's trying to take a bite out of her. I have another Robert E. Lee up there, and she bit the Traveler. She bit Traveler on the leg. That's the horse.
Professor Guelzo has been on the History Channel many times.
And you sent me his contact information. I'm going to try and get a hold of him.
I did not, but he teaches at Princeton University.
Okay. Come up.
He's just a wonderful man. When he gives a lecture and you could see him, it's like sitting down and having your great uncle tell you a story. You just feel like he's that interested in you alone, you know. I enjoy listening to him.
Well, I will look him up. I'll learn the Whipping Poof song, but I'm no guarantee that I'm going to sing it because I don't want to lose all my viewers. So
next week you could tell me, hopefully, why I want you to hear that song.
Okay, that I can do. All right,
Okay.
I'll get on it. I'll make my son learn it with me. How's that?
Very good.
So Lee, thank you. Always good to see you, even if it's via Zoom. Justin, thank you for all you're doing up there 3 miles away at Merrimack TV. And thank you all for watching. I'm going to get this up on YouTube as soon as I can. And we'll be back next week with another show, continuing our little mini series on history. So thank you all for watching and have a great week. Thank you.